Welcome to the You Can Mentor podcast. This is Zach. Guys, it's been a while, and I apologize for that. I thought I was just going to take off a couple weeks during the summer, but that turned into like 2 months, and here we are. But now that we're back, we're kind of doing something new. We're doing some YouTube. I have hired someone to run all my marketing stuff. I'm trying to get professional here, and the person I hired is none other than Silas Nasita, who's joining us on the pod today. Silas, say hi.
Hello.
It's great. Silas and I met about a year ago, and we've been spending some time together. Silas, how would you describe our relationship?
It's really creepy.
You can't say that.
I can. Maybe I should say it was. I was gonna choose between like God ordained, and I just chose creepy.
And you chose creepy.
I just
instead.
chose creepy. But where I was going was that there's so many crazy similarities between the two of us, and just our stories, how they align, how God has brought us together, both growing up without fathers, really in our lives, both having a passion for mentorship, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, a lot of things aligned to the point where it's creepy.
So not creepy like I'm weird, but creepy like
you're definitely weird.
but more so creepy like the Lord's up to something.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Good. Okay, so Silas is going to be helping us out with the podcast some. He's going to be joining me on this episode. You know, first I had Stephen Murray, and then he kind of left me. He's running a mentoring program up in Dallas. Everything's cool with us. We're still buds, but he's gone. John Bernard is still in Waco. He's going to be on the podcast more often, but he is currently in Ohio speaking at a mentoring conference. So Silas is going to help me out, and Silas is the man. So Silas, why don't you just give like a 1 to 2 minute, who is Silas?
I'm Silas. I'm 30 years old. I live and work in Waco, Texas. I'm married to Taylor. She is awesome. She keeps me sane. I've had a lot of brokenness in my life. Grew up without a father, like I mentioned earlier, which kind of really shaped me a lot. That lack of love and affirmation from my dad is kind of what drove my whole life. Similar to your story. Was an athlete my whole life. Kind of got that sense of affirmation from sports, chasing accolades, things like that. Started a business 4 years ago doing video production. Now it's grown to a small team of 3. Seen and Loved Studios is the name of it. And I got a lot of energy. I would say I have a lot of energy, and that can be used for good things or bad things.
Amen.
And so, yeah, I want kids. Don't have them yet. But I'm just learning how to be loved for who I am, not what I do.
It's great. Love it.
Yeah.
Silas and I spend time together every Friday morning talking about Jesus and how to be men of God and husbands and fathers and, you know, all of that good stuff. So
Great.
Shout out to the Adam Twos.
Yes.
Who will never listen to this podcast. But today, Silas, what are we talking about today?
Well, you wrote down invitation to invite. So why don't you tell me what that is?
Invitation to invite. That's right. So today what we're talking about is the importance of inviting your mentee into your life. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of start out just by kind of sharing my, I guess it's my testimony. Whenever I first started to mentor, right? If you guys have been tuned into the podcast for a while, you know that I was a junior high football coach. I was a teacher. I was single. I didn't have anything else to do, but I had a passion for helping kids who were just like me. And I started to mentor some kids. And when I first started to mentor, I found it to be more difficult than I thought. Like at first, I was like, man, we're just going to hang out. We're going to have conversation. This kid's going to love me. It's going to be easy peasy. They're going to fall in love with Jesus. It's going to be amazing. But what I found was it's really hard to have a conversation with a kid. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
It's even harder to have a conversation with a kid who you don't have a lot in common. So, Silas, have you by chance ever had a conversation with someone who you don't have a lot in common with?
Yeah, for sure.
Super weird, right?
Super boring.
Yeah, just like awkward. There's a lot of times where you're just sitting in the car staring at each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's now that's creepy. That's creepy. And so in order to kind of fight that, I thought that I had to do like super cool stuff. Like every time that I hung out with my mentee, I had to pull out all of the stops, right? I had to like take him to the movies or like take him to go eat someplace cool or take him to Six Flags or like a professional sports game. Like I tried to really wow them with the things that I could provide them so that they would have a good time with me.
Yeah.
And guess what happened?
You went broke.
Yeah, I did go broke indeed because I didn't have any money. And those things add up quick. Like you take them out to dinner, you take them out to a movie, that's like $30.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like ran out of money. I ran out of ideas. I didn't really know what to do.
Where'd you get that? Like, what made you think that you needed to do that?
I don't know. That's a great question, Silas. Look at you coming out with the good questions. Golly.
I told you I do that for a living.
You're right. You're right.
Just ask questions.
I guess it's like a fear that if they don't have the time of their lives, that they're not going to want to hang out with me. So I guess it's all driven by like fear of rejection, fear of man, like what those kids think of me, which it's so nuts to think that I, as an adult, would care about what a kid thinks about me, but it happens all the time.
Mm.
And so I would say fear that I'm wasting their time, which if you take a look at that objectively, it's not like our kids have like a ton to do.
Right.
But yeah, just fear would be my answer.
Yeah. So then what do you do? What you learned, okay, I this is not sustainable to keep doing all these extravagant things with my mentee. What'd you go from there?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go to what typically happens.
Okay.
So in my experience overseeing mentors, this is what happens. The mentor gets super excited. They hang out with their mentee. They do all of these cool things. Like, hey, we're going to go play laser tag. We're going to go bowling. We're going to go, do all of these cool things. And then after about 4 or 5 times, they run out of things to do or they run out of money. And then there's just this like awkward, like, okay, now what? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, how can I possibly go and sit at a park, or how can I do something not amazing whenever my kid doesn't even talk to me, right? That's going to be weird. That's going to be awkward. That is not going to achieve the goal that I want, which is connection with this kiddo. And so, I mean, I'm a pretty gregarious person. Like, I think that I could kind of figure it out. And I coached these kids, which that helped a ton, right?
Yeah.
So like I taught them and I coached them. So maybe I'm not the best example, but what do you do, right? Like, unfortunately, when things get weird, that's like prime time for the enemy to come in and like lie and say, this isn't working. Y'all aren't a good match.
Yeah.
You're not helping, and things like that. So.
Yeah. Well, how do you know? I guess maybe this is a different topic, and just if it is, then you can just tell me. But what is the heart of mentoring anyway? So is the heart of mentoring to make the kid like you and really want to open up to you? Is that your responsibility?
So the answer to that is no. And so I think the heart of mentoring is trying, and this is going to sound super corny, but it's true, trying to be like Jesus. Like, Jesus pursues us, period, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so patient if we don't want to open up. In fact, he is always patient with us. Like, he is going to be there for us on our terms. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think being a mentor is all about showing up. It's all about staying encouraging. And it's all about whenever that door does open up, you trying to be prepared to help build the relationship through trust. And that's the thing with our kids, Silas. I mean, you obviously, both of us have talked about the importance of trust, about how I'm for sure not going to open up until I know that this person is for me.
Yeah.
And also I'm going to do a couple things to see if I can like gauge whether or not I can trust them, you know, kind of try to push them back a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, it's building that relationship by creating trust. That would be the goal of mentoring. It's not necessarily to get a kid to like you, but it sure does help, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, no one likes hanging out with someone that they don't like.
Right.
But things changed whenever this kid named Jonathan came into my life. So Jonathan Garza is this kid's name. No relation, just a coincidence. He's not like my son. But Jonathan was a super cool kid. He was in 8th grade, and I was, teacher and a coach. We got along super well. And one day I'm driving to the grocery store, and I get a phone call from Jonathan. He's like, "Hey, coach, what's up?" And I'm like, "Nothing much, Jonathan. How's it going with you?" He's like, "Nothing. What are you doing?" And he said, "Nothing." And he asked me what I was doing. I said, "I'm going to the grocery store." And he said, "Can I come with you?" And that's like such a simple ask, right? But it kind of was like, what? You want to go to the grocery store with me? And I was like, "Yeah, sure, dude. I'm going to come swing by your spot, and I'm going to come get you." And I did it. And for the next 45 minutes, I mean, me and Jonathan had an amazing connection.
Yeah.
I picked him up. We had a car ride. We walked up and down the aisles of, I think it was a Kroger. He helped me shop. And then I took him home. But like that day and the connection that Jonathan and I created through going grocery shopping showed me that it's not about what we can provide for our mentee. It's not about what we can do for our mentee, but instead it's just about inviting them into our lives and having them experience the same things that, we experience on a daily basis.
This is a side note. Do you feel like when you were initially mentoring, you felt like you needed to do something elaborate? Did your dad do that with you, where he wasn't super present and invite you into his life, but then try to take you to things to like excite you or whatever? Because that's what my dad did. He would like randomly show up with like cool things. Yeah. And from what I've witnessed and experienced and observed from other people, everybody just wanted to be with their dad and be in their lives. Like nobody actually really needed the big extravagant thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I can remember my dad bought me like a bowling ball. And he's like, "Hey man, we're going to go bowling." I'm like, "All right, sweet. Bowling. That sounds fun. Thanks, Dad." And then we went bowling like twice, which sucked. But like, I think that's what's so crazy is in my mind, we all know the kids don't need the expensive stuff.
No.
Like they don't need to go to Six Flags. They don't need to go to the only thing that they need is you.
Yeah.
But the lie of you have to impress them, you have to entertain them is so strong.
Yeah.
But
where does that come from, you think?
I mean, obviously society will kind of share that with us. It's a lie. Yeah. I mean, it is for sure not true. Right. But the bottom line is maybe it's this. Maybe it comes from society will tell you that you are not enough, that you have to provide something else. Yeah. And then there's a huge fear that I am not enough.
Yeah,
like
that's good. Yeah, that's it.
Any mentor that I know has thought, what do I have to share with this kid? Why should they listen to me? What am I going to say to help them become, the best version of themselves? Right. And so it is enough. Like, you are enough. As a mentor, you are enough. And the kids don't need your presence. They don't need you to take them to Six Flags.
Presence with a T at the end, right?
They don't need your presence. They need your presence.
With the C.
With a C.
Put that on a shirt.
Put that on a shirt. All right. But your presence is enough.
Yeah.
And it really is all that they need. Like, they just want your attention. They just want your love. They just want your affirmation. They just want your words. And yeah, it's awesome to go paintball. It's awesome to go play laser tag. It's awesome to go to the mall. I don't even know if kids go to the mall anymore. But more than anything, they want your love. And I think that's so simple, and it's so hard to comprehend because it is so simple. You're like, what? It's that easy?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, it is. Which is crazy, man.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I learned that day walking through the aisles with Jonathan.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about girls, we talked about sports, we talked about school. I mean, especially with men, like, we do so well side by side. And when you're walking through the store, you're kind of doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're turning down aisles. You've got the cart.
You have easy outs when if it gets awkward.
Oh, man. Yeah. Like, hey, so how's it going with that girl that you like? Fine. Oh, hey, here's some cereal.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So,
totally.
But it was like, it
It's a
amazed
safe environment.
me. And especially if your kid doesn't have a positive person in their life who's speaking into them, especially if they don't have a dad, or especially if, they just don't get a ton of one-on-one attention.
Yeah.
Doing things like that, like, this sounds nuts, mowing the yard, going to the grocery store, running errands. Like, those are things that they will never be like, oh, yes, I get to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But inside, they are saying that.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest, our kids aren't doing much. Like, most of the time, they're just chilling.
Yeah.
Especially if they're, in a single parent household, especially if they are in, a apartment complex that isn't safe. Like, they're just in their apartment watching TV.
Yeah.
And so when you can invite them to anything, but more than that, inviting them to be with you, like, that's going to make them feel like $1 million.
Yeah. And not only that, but they get to witness things and be inserted into experiences that is better than you just telling them about it. For example, just going to your house on Saturday nights for the family dinner. I know what's happening, like, and it's still impactful. Like, I know that I'm there and I'm getting to observe you with your family and your kids. And I'm sitting there absorbing, like, oh, this is what it's like to, lead your kid in prayer, and it's a powerful thing for me to watch. And I know what you're doing. I know.
I'm tricking you.
I know what you're doing. I know how you're just pulling the strings behind me, No, I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, whenever you will have your kids pray, or like you did your little family devotional or whatever. And I was watching it the other day, and I was like, oh, like, that's it. Like, that's the simplicity of it. Like, half the kids aren't paying attention. You're saying it, and it doesn't seem like anything's happening, but it's happening. And it made me realize, like, oh, like, it doesn't have to be this super intense thing where all your kids are sitting around and they are all focused on the Bible and praying exactly like they're fully grown adults. They're not,
No.
But it's simply you leading them in that. So all of it to say, getting to experience that when you invite us over is super powerful, because I don't know that example. I haven't seen it. I don't know.
And what I'm doing there is Sarah's my wife. We have Silas and some people over every other Saturday night. We're just inviting you into our lives.
Yeah.
Like, that's all that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sarah and I are going to do this regardless.
Yeah.
But there's two things here. So much more is caught than taught.
Yeah, I like that.
And like, you're catching so much more than I know just by being at my table.
Yeah.
And then you can't be what you can't see. So like,
yes.
How are you going to become a godly father if you never had a godly father in your life?
Right.
How are you going to become a positive and productive member of society if you've never seen that? And so much of being a mentor is just showing up and just being present and inviting them into whatever you're doing. Like, hey, look, if you're going to the bank, invite them to the bank, because there's going to come a day when they're going to need to go to a bank. And if they don't know how to do that, they're kind of out of luck.
Right.
And that sounds so simple. And the first thing that the first thing that goes through my head is, why in the world would they want to go to a bank? Like, why in the world would they want to go and get my car washed? Why in the world would they want to mow my yard?
Right.
Well, because you are teaching them how to do things that an adult does. And that's mentoring.
Yeah.
And so, I encourage everyone who's tuning in to, I'm inviting you to invite.
Yeah.
And don't worry about if it's going to be dumb. Don't worry about if they're going to have fun. Just invite them and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know what can happen.
Well, that's what I was going to say earlier, was that when you invite us into your home and you're just being you and you guys are living, then you're allowing me to observe and like take things away without even you saying anything, So imagine you give a 45-minute sermon to someone, they might pull out like 2 things that they heard from what you're saying. Well, if I'm watching you for 45 minutes, I actually will probably pull out a lot more than 2 things, because words for me are hard to remember. But like observing things is a lot easier to remember. It's like, oh, I remember that happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. Like so much more easily to remember than hearing words and remembering the words. Does it make sense?
100%.
So I want to give the example. Like in this one, this is the best part, because y'all obviously were not even thinking about this. But when I went into your house that one day and I was like, everybody's just fully functioning and it's chaos in here. It's a mess. There's stuff all over the floor. And I was like, they got a family, they got 3 kids. And my wife and I recently have been just struggling to learn how to just have peace in a messy house. Like sometimes it's just going to be messy, and I don't want to be a family that just gets freaked out if the house is a mess. And yet you guys had 3 kids, a lot of stuff going on, and you guys were at peace. And I'm like, okay, see, I'm observing this thing that they've figured out how to have peace in the midst of chaos. And then the funny part was Sarah was like, oh, we actually just cleaned.
Yeah, we're like, oh, thanks. This is our best, and you think it's terrible.
Yeah, jerk.
But like, this is what is so important here, Silas, I'm speaking to all of our mentors. You can't judge what your mentee is thinking or feeling based on their face.
Yeah.
So like, I'm sitting there, Silas is talking about whenever we have them over for a meal, Sarah and I do this thing every Saturday night where we say like a little
blessing.
Yeah, it's like a little blessing over our kids and things like that. And it's so awkward. Like I am freaking out because I'm like, this is dumb. This is too long. No one's liking it. People are going to think we're weird. I'm sweating. Like, but you never know what's going on in other people's minds.
Right.
And so like, if you're a mentor, don't believe the lie of they're not going to like it, it's going to be too hot, or they're not going to have fun, or they're not going to get anything out of it. Just do it. Just invite them into your life and let the Lord do his thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And you don't need their approval, because kids are terrible. Like I have never, and I've been a mentor now for almost 20 years. I've never, maybe once or twice, had a kid be like, hey, coach, thank you so much for mentoring me. You remember that time whenever you took me paintballing? Just wanted to say thank you. Man, that was an incredible experience that I'll never forget. Right?
Right.
That's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you as a mentor, overcome the lies, overcome the fears, and just invite them to live life with you and know that you are enough.
Yeah.
And know that something is happening, whether or not they can say it or not, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not they look like they're having fun or not. Because, I mean, your story, Silas, whenever you said that you received something, whenever we had a meal together, in my perception, I thought that you were having a bad time.
Are you talking about the Shabbat dinner?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
But that just goes to to show you that, like, I thought you were having a bad time.
Yeah.
You just told me that you had a good time and that
Yeah.
you picked up some things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
in fact, I told you after, I was like you guys could like take it even further.
Yeah.
Like I want you to keep going with it, you know?
Yeah. So let's get practical here. Okay. So what are some things that you do every day that you can invite your mentee to? So like for me, or week, you know, every week it's like, man, I go work out. And I'm like, I can invite my mentee to that.
Mm-hmm.
I go to church. I can invite my mentee to that. I go to the grocery store. I run errands. I take walks around my neighborhood. Anything that comes to mind, Silas? In
That
regards
I
to
do?
you? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I play pickleball quite a bit now.
Yes, you are obsessed with pickleball.
I am obsessed with pickleball. That's especially great for bringing people along because it's super easy to pick up.
Right.
What else? I do CrossFit.
Yeah, you do. Look at those muscles.
Creepy. Church. I mean, I work in an office that anybody can come to, so I could totally invite them to the office one day for lunch or whatever. Yeah, I mean, all of the things that you mentioned as well.
Yeah. So, and like this is what I love. Like, let's try to tie it back to Jesus. Jesus invites us.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says, "Come."
Yeah.
He says, "Come, all you who are weary, all you who are burdened, come."
Yeah.
And what did Jesus do? Jesus didn't take his disciples to Six Flags. Jesus says, "Hey, come and live life with me. Come and watch me."
Yeah.
There's a saying that says, I could be off on this, so please give me grace. But may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi is a saying which means like, may you follow so closely to the person that you're following that you get dust whenever they walk. And so it's like, man, that shows me, like, just as a mentor, as a leader, you do you follow Jesus, you be a good wife, you be a good husband, you be a good parent, and you be a good worker. Like, you take care of your things. You be a responsible, positive, and productive member of society who follows Jesus and who loves others, and just let your mentee watch. And I promise you, their lives will be transformed.
Yeah.
Because so much more is caught than taught. And you have so much more to offer than you think.
Yeah.
And so don't believe the lies that they won't want to follow you. Don't believe the lies that they won't listen to you. Don't believe the lies that you're not enough, because you are.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh, here it comes, Silas. You can mentor. Like, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. You're pounding your chest. Anyone can do it. That's why we call this thing You Can Mentor.
Yeah.
So get serious about inviting your mentee into your life. And I'm serious about asking you to consider inviting. This is my invitation to invite. I think that's it. Hey, this is our first podcast on YouTube, I think. Silas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so go and check us out. Follow us on social media. We also got a new website. Check that out. We have a conference coming up. We got these things called the Learning Labs coming up. Check out social media to learn more about that. But that's all I got, man. So
Fantastic. I love it.
all right. Well, Silas, thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys missed out on all this cool stuff today, remember this one thing: you can mentor.